I believe that this is the only YouTube channel where you can learn Communication and Media Studies new syllabus in English medium. Today our lesson is the origin of Communication and Media Studies subject. There is an inseparable relationship between communication and human interrelationships. From the day human beings emerged on the planet Earth, human communication has existed. The communication process of information exchange that began in the primitive society, with primitive man using simple signs, sounds, and symbols to fulfill his or her simple needs, has evolved into a complex process of communication through the highly developed communication technology in the present society. The developments in communication technology, the progress made in mass media, and the nature of its influence on society have been the important factors that have led to the development and the in-depth study of the subject of communication studies as an independent academic discipline. That means academic subject. The main aim of communication studies is to examine how communication works as the central element of human experience. Here, human experience consists of understanding the process of message creation, dissemination of the message, and how the interpretation of the message influences the behavior patterns and the actions of the people. Though the activity of communication is an activity that runs into the beginning of man, yet the study of communication studies as an academic discipline commenced only in the early period of the 20th century. The Industrial Revolution and the World War I and II are important factors that have led to the rapid development of communication technology and the emergence and the expansion of mass media. These conditions increased the interest and the need for the study of the discipline known as communication studies. The mass media that were used during the World War to report war-related news as well as for exchange of information were used after the world wars to entertain and inform the people. Productions such as teledramas, films, magazines, and songs that highlighted terror, fear, heroism, and sexuality aimed at the people whose mental state was depressed as a result of the war were produced as a means of providing light entertainment to these affected people. That means simple entertainment. During this time, the media was used by the media owners and the political leaders with the objective of making profit as well as obtaining and retaining power. This intense influence of the media on society in every way motivated the scholars to study the field of communication as an academic discipline. As a result, through the discoveries made during the 1920 by experts linked to different fields, is proved that the media operations of that time had an influence on the individual as well as the social relations of that individual. It was not long before the subject discipline known as Communication and Media Studies came to be related to three disciplines: psychology, sociology, and political science. The contributions of Charles Horton Cooley in the field of sociology, the contributions of Walter Lippmann in the field of political science, and the contributions of John Davy in the field of education established the necessary foundation required for the present day emergence of communication studies as an academic discipline. The ideas expressed by Charles Horton Cooley in his book Social Organization, Walter Lippmann in his book Public Opinion, and John Davy, in his book The Public and Its Problems, contributed towards the development of the field of communication studies. In order to maintain human relationships and to develop them, the mechanism of communication is important, showed by Charles Horton Cooley in his studies. All these three learned persons maintain that the central factor in social existence is the communication process. These scholars express their ideas further on the relationship between the influence of changing and developing media technology on culture and communication as well as on democracy and people, and how these factors create social conflicts. Followed by this trend, the subject area of communication studies underwent a process of specialization rooted down in Europe and America. This was a major centralized event that happened as a result of the emergence of a group of learned American individuals. In this manner, communication and media studies came to be not a subsidiary discipline of other subjects, but a developed subject area independent of them. From 1933 to 1945, under the rule of Adolf Hitler of Germany, many scholars were exiled from German universities. Most of them who migrated reached in a variety of subjects centered on the field of communication. They engaged in serious educational matters of communication studies centered in American universities. Scholars such as Harold D. Lasswell, Kurt Lewin, Paul F. Lassersfeld, Carl Ivor Holland, Wilbur Schramm, and George Gerbner, as well as engineers Claude Shannon and Warren Weaver, provided the base for the study of communication studies as an academic discipline. In the 1940s, steps were taken by Professor Wilbur Schramm to institutionalize the subject of communication studies as an academic discipline. In the meantime, it can be shown that mass media schools and institutes of communication experiments were established, that new academic departments were opened in the universities. The University of Illinois in Chicago, USA, has the honor of being the first university to introduce communication studies as an academic discipline. In the early period of the 1960s, communication studies, which was a part of the fields of sociology, political science, psychology, and English language, began to be studied as an independent academic discipline. The experimental studies that were conducted in the 60s and 70s by the scholars engaged in the field of communication studies revealed that the message content presented by the mass media and the activities of the mass media had an impact on all aspects of people's lives. The factors revealed through the findings made by the experiments conducted by scholars such as Professor Wilbur Schramm and the experiment groups of the universities regarding the influence of television, especially on children, were subjected to deep discussion. Presenting Professor Wilbur Schramm the first report on the experiment conducted regarding television media, he observes that there is a relationship between children distancing themselves from social relationships and their use of television. Further, the report stated that children who quarrel with their parents in order to escape from their own resentment and forget their pain of the mind tend to watch television. The findings made by the experiment group from the University of Pennsylvania, based on an experiment where two groups of children were exposed to cartoon programs with and without violence, further confirmed the observations that Professor Wilbur Schramm presented on the experiment that he had conducted. The experiment group from the University of Pennsylvania pointed out that three main changes occur in children as a result of watching television programs that consist of violent actions. Number one, children lose sensitivity towards hurtful situations. Number two, children are infused with a sense of fear about the surrounding environment and the world that they live in. Number three, children, while relating to others, are more prone to be offensive and are prone to be creating conflicts. The studies made on the findings of experiments conducted on the effects of the media on society helped further to develop the field of communication studies as an academic discipline. The influence of the mass media on the society in the 1960s and 70s, the arrival of digital technology as a media platform in the 80s and 90s, the new media as well as the activities of the social media in the present society have been a cause for the further widening of the scope of the subject communication studies. The subject of communication is a live and an active field of study. From ancient times, it had developed with the emergence of communication technology. In the present as well as in the future, the subject of communication and the development of modern communication instruments as well as the nature of their use and the influence they have on society could develop and change further. Thank you for watching.